চেক চেক হ্যালো হ্যালো কৌশিক, তোর লাইন ট্যাব আমি অন্য জায়গা থেকে চেঞ্জ করে দিচ্ছি দাঁড়া।
Hello. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. You are requested to please take your seats. We'll start the program in 5 minutes. Thank you. Colleagues in the Bengal chamber, you are requested to please inform the people outside that we are starting the program. Hello. Hello. Good morning. So we are commencing the inaugural session, The Future of Energy Applications in India. We would request our dignitaries to please come and take their seats on the dais. We have with us Dr. Ajay Mathur, His Excellency Sri Upendra Tripathi, Mr. Franz Josef Schaffhausen, His Excellency Archil Zulia Shilly, Sri Shobhandev Chattopadhyay, Honorable Minister in charge of Power and Non-Conventional Energy Sources, Government of West Bengal, and the British High Commissioner to India will join us. I would also request Mr. Debe Mukherjee, Chairperson, Energy and Environment Committee, Mr. Arun Kumar Mukherjee, Chairperson, Emeritus of Energy and Environment Committee, and Mr. Shutanu Ghosh, President, the Bengal Chamber, to please come and take the seats on the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, you are requested to please take your seats so that we can commence the session. May I now request Mr. Debe Mukherjee to please deliver the welcome address and take the session forward.
Thank you, Angana. A very good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, all of you who were here last evening. And a very warm welcome, may I extend a very warm welcome to the others who have joined us today at our 10th edition of Bengal Chamber's Energy and Environment Conclave. As I mentioned last evening, the focus or the aim this year for the conclave was to deliver strong value propositions to all our members and stakeholders by providing a platform where linkages could be made, partnerships could be formed amongst companies, amongst organizations to deliver higher, better, more profitable business value. So this year's conclave is quite business focused. Thought leaders, policymakers, industry and academia all together. We are very happy that International Solar Alliance and the United Kingdom have agreed to cooperate and collaborate with us. And I'm particularly grateful to Terry and to Dr. Mathur. Terry is our knowledge partner, and the Bengal Chamber is working very closely with Terry in disseminating knowledge and the proceedings, in fact, the proceedings and that will come out of this year's conclave. Whilst last evening we had visionary addresses by the thought leaders, today, as I said, it's more business focused. We have an inaugural session where we are joined by some of the distinguished speakers who also spoke last evening. Additionally, we have been joined by our President, Mr. Shutanu Ghosh, and His Excellency, the Ambassador from Georgia. Sir, I'll be struggling to pronounce your surname, so I shall have to seek assistance. If I... Sualashvili? Maybe close. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we will also be joined by the British High Commissioner, Sir Dominic Asquith, who will join us in about hopefully 15-20 minutes' time. He has specially flown down to Calcutta to participate in today's event. And we'll also be joined by our State Power Minister, Shri Shobhandev Chattopadhyay. After the inaugural session, we have a very interesting short ceremony of the signing of an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, between a UK company that has just come to India but have already formed strong relationships with TERI, the Energy and Resources Institute, and Jain Irrigation Systems, world leaders in irrigation solutions, for a very innovative technology. So we are going to have an MOU signing ceremony which also establishes the fact that the Chamber means business and is helping in establishing these business linkages. We have two panels after that, discussion panels, one on power infrastructure and one on innovative technology and technology applications. Now, these two power panels will be, the participants would be industry leaders and also from academia and research organizations. Following that, we would also have presentation by UK companies. The delegates, there are about 8 to 10 UK companies who have come as part of the UK delegation to this conference, and they would be making short presentations on their offerings, and that would be coordinated by the Deputy Chief of Mission of the British High Commission in Calcutta, followed by a valedictory session by Dr. Sunita Narayan, which will be the concluding part of the proceedings. We start this morning on a high note. And who else but Dr. Ajay Mathur can actually set the tone and raise the standard. Sir.
Mr. Ghosh, Mr. Mukherjee, Mr. Schaffhausen, Mr. Tripathi, Mr. Dev Mukherjee, and friends. As I start off, I would like to continue with the conversation that we started last night, which was one of change. Can anybody tell me where my presentation is? must be this one, the first one. Right. Okay, thanks. We all agreed yesterday that the future will not be like, not just like yesterday, but not even like today. We see that there is a large transformation that is happening. And what I would like to do is to put into context what this huge transition is. My colleagues call it a turbulent transition. And then focus on what I believe are different ways of doing business that are emerging in the years ahead. I particularly focus on this time of transition. This time of transition could be a minimum of 6 years, but probably will be closer to 10 to 15 years. The problem with transitions, of course, is that while you, at least in this particular case, we have a reasonable idea of where we will end up with, during this period, there are huge uncertainties regarding investments, regarding business models, regarding policies, and consequently uncertainties in how we go about our businesses. So what I'd like to do is to focus on the kinds of transitions that have already occurred or which are already occurring, and use those to see if we can learn about how is it that we invest, how is it that we, what are the business models that make sense, and therefore what are the kinds of policies that will need to be in place to help grow the change. Now, the first transition that I'd like to focus on is on the electricity generation sector. The top curve shows the generating capacity that exists, and as you will see, today it is in excess of 300,000 megawatts, 320,000 megawatts to be very exact. However, and the blue bars are the amount of coal-based generation capacity that we have. And the smaller bars are the amount of renewable energy generation capacity that we have. Right? So that's the installed capacity. The line that is there shows the amount of maximum electricity that has been bought at any given time in the year. And what do you see? For many years, at least till 2011, the maximum capacity was maybe 30% more than what was the maximum amount of electricity that we were able to sell. At that 30% excess, because all electricity capacity is not available at the same time, the hydro reservoirs may not be full, we operated in an economy of energy, electricity shortages. But look what happened after 2011. The demand growth continued to be somewhat similar to what it had been in the past, but the amount of capacity that we have dramatically increased. So last year, or earlier this year, the maximum amount of electricity that we have bought is something of the order of about 160,000 megawatts, while the capacity is 320. It is less than even the amount of coal generation capacity that we have. There was a lot of discussion yesterday about the stress which the coal-based power stations are. And the simple issue here is that we have got a huge amount of generating capacity. Demand is nowhere near the amount of capacity we have, and consequently, the power plants are hurting. If we don't get electricity, it is not because we cannot generate electricity. It is because the distribution companies would rather not buy expensive electricity and sell it at cheaper rates. So it's an issue of tariffs, it's an issue of the remuneration that the distribution companies get. And I think West Bengal has shown how you can provide electricity 24/7 and yet be remunerative. There are many, many states where this is not happening. So that's the first transition, that today the generating capacity in the country is far more than the economic demand. The second transition is that the demand has changed. I'm showing two graphs. The lower one is for Delhi in 2010. You will notice that the peak demand occurred at about 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If you look at the same curve for 2017, you will notice obviously it is about 2,000 megawatts more. Yes, it is. But the other thing that you will notice is that apart from the peak happening in the mid-afternoon, the same amount of electricity is also needed at midnight. Midnight? In Delhi? That's air conditioning. As people go to sleep, they switch on the air conditioners. And therefore, as cities become richer, this night peak is something else that we are seeing. And it's not just Delhi. We haven't seen it in Calcutta as yet, but we are seeing it in places like Vijayawada. So, one of the key changes that is occurring is the nature of the demand curve. We no longer work under a single afternoon peak assumption. This obviously implies that how we buy electricity, how the distribution companies buy electricity, and how we as consumers use electricity has completely changed. The third transition that I'd like to mention is that the electricity from renewables is becoming cheaper. You see the blue curve? That's the price of electricity from renewables. And the red curve is the price of electricity from coal. These are new plants for which prices have been approved by the various state electricity regulatory commissions. So they are real prices that you and I face, or rather the distribution companies face. And you will notice the tipping point has occurred. Electricity from solar costs less than electricity from coal for a new power station. And this is not just an Indian trend. This is a global trend. The graph on the upper right shows how prices are decreasing and will continue to decrease for solar electricity. However, solar electricity is available when the sun shines. And the peak, as we have found, is now moving to the middle of the night when there is no sun. Therefore, it is important to store electricity from solar so that you can store it in the day when it is produced and use it at night when we need it. So storage becomes important. We can use pumped hydro, Purali as an example. We can use the existing coal and gas stations for peaking purposes. But the most expensive, and the one which has not yet made an entry into the power sector, is using batteries. So, if we are able to have cost-effective electricity using renewables and batteries, then we can be sure that renewable electricity can meet all our needs all our times. And the lower graph on the right shows how the prices of batteries are falling and their performance is increasing and is expected to in the near future. It is expected that over the next 10 years, by about 2025, 2026, the price of electricity from solar plus batteries, the two of them together, would be the same or less than the price of electricity from coal at that time. Obviously, the share of renewables in our grid is increasing, and that's the white curve that you see at the top. It is nearing about 8%. Now, this does not include large hydro. If you add that, it's another 16%, so it goes to about 24%. The short point that I'd like to leave you with is that, number one, we probably will see renewables plus a storage getting to the same region as coal-based electricity in about 10 years or less. Second, that while it will take 10 years to reach there, we have got so much excess capacity. Remember the 320,000 megawatts of installed capacity, and there is another 35,000 megawatts that is under construction. That this will be able to meet all our increasing demand at least till 2026, 2027. It is at that time that the coal-based power stations would have a capacity factor of 80% or so. So, to repeat, we will see solar plus batteries, the electricity from solar plus batteries becoming less than the price of electricity from coal by 2025. We will see that the current plants will reach their optimal usage by 2026 or so. It's a very interesting period of time. This also means that as the coal power stations use more and more, produce more and more electricity, the amount of coal that we will use will go up from the current 600 million tons to something like 900 million tons by about 2026. But beyond that, demand will keep on increasing. Beyond that period of time, all the new capacity would be met by renewables. This is what I would like to leave you with. This is what we see as the direction in which the Indian electricity sector is going. So, what we also believe is the next 6 years will be turbulent. Why 6 years? Because the current battle, the current tension is that we have a lot of coal power stations who are not able to sell electricity and therefore have a revenue problem. They have a repayment problem. On the other hand, the prices of renewables continue to decrease. This tension will go on till the plants that we have reach a capacity factor of about 60%, which we believe should happen around 2022. So, between now and 2022, the economics of coal will continue to be challenged. And there will be a, not will be, there is a large issue of where is it that the government needs to put its policies. Should it be towards saving coal? Should it be towards promoting renewables? Last week, on the 17th, the Chief Economic Advisor, Dr. Arvind Subramaniam, delivered the 16th Dabari Seth Memorial Lecture, a lecture at TERI, which we have institutionalized to remember our founder. And this is exactly the point he said. He said, there is so much we have already invested in coal. So on the one hand, we have to bail out coal, and on the other hand, we have to provide promotional avenues from renewables. As you can imagine, the speech set off an uproar. Since that day, there have been any number of articles, comments on, largely on the renewable side, and saying that that is where the future is. But please remember that coal, not coal-based generation, coal will continue to grow. We will not see, we don't expect any more coal power plants to come up. Banks will not give you a loan because there's so much excess capacity. And by the time there is time to add capacity, renewables would be cheaper. But coal demand will continue to increase, and it will increase and then become constant. Why? Because beyond that point, all new capacity that is being added is renewables. So what we see is an increase in coal use, a stabilization followed by a slow decline. So I'll end by suggesting what does this mean. It obviously means that any new investment will have to be checked on the calculus of what does it mean as far as the future costs are concerned. And for future costs, you can use renewable energy costs as a surrogate, you can use carbon cost as a surrogate, but it is useful, as was discussed yesterday. The Mahindras have already adopted an internal carbon price of $10 per ton. But something like that is useful when you are weighing investments in between one kind of investment against another. The second is, it is important to look at what is it that we invest in. I had argued yesterday that for a variety of reasons, for reducing imports of fuels, for purposes of selling the huge amount of electricity that we could produce from the capacity that we have, for the long-term decarbonization of the transport sector, a movement towards electric vehicles is happening and will accelerate. Saurabh Kumar, who was here yesterday, has brought out a tender for 10,000 electric cars, with the view that all government of India and PSUs should use these cars. And the model he's using is, most people in PSUs and the government today use cars that have been rented. So somebody is providing it on lease. So what EESL is saying, I will provide it to you. So today you are paying 50,000 rupees a month. I will charge you 45,000. I will take care of the car. You will get the same level of services. In other words, we are creating the market, which goes to the next point.